Good morning, everybody. How are we today? Yeah, we ready to start a business? Good. This is the right place to be. Thanks, Catherine, for introducing me. I'm Natalie Parker. I'm the CEO and co-founder of KLP Commercial. My sister and I, we started the business 6 years ago. We're a construction supply company. We have 4 stocking locations in Texas. We just opened our 5th in San Antonio. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm the moderator. I'm also very experienced in what it is to start a business from nothing, from scratch. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy to see faces here that want to do this. It's not easy, but it's possible. And the state of Texas has incredible resources for you. I'm telling you right now, we've used them. I can talk about them. I'm going to let the experts talk about them instead. But really, you want to utilize these resources. It will be a shame with everything that we have for you, and then what we're also tasked with by the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, to help women grow their businesses. So with all that said, I'm going to ask our panelists to come up, please. Now, I'm going to introduce them, and then we're going to kind of start with some questions, and they'll answer questions, and then at that point we can, if somebody has questions in the audience or anything like that, so we can kind of make it a conversation. Because I know it's in the morning, you get talked at, that's not that much fun. Let's make it a little bit more fun, a bit more interactive. So I'm waiting for my questions, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the panel, and then if they're printing them out for me. So we have Jane Henry from See Her Work.
I'm going to do that.
Okay, good. I didn't warm up I didn't do my warm up for my muscles. Great, thank you. And then we have Jenny Dufresne. Dufresne. Yeah, I'm not French. Forgive me.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks. Jenny Dufresne, and she's with Dufresne Solutions Group. And then Ann Fiorovia. She's with the Small Business Development Center of Del Mar College. And Catherine Stone from Procurement Technical Assistance Center of Del Mar College.
My name's simple.
Yes, thank you.
Mine.
Thank you. And that you might have heard of PTAC. So that stands for PTAC. And we have PTAC resources all over the state. So you're very lucky, by the way, to have one here in your hometown. I'm from Austin, and Karen and I did not have a PTAC center in Austin. Karen's my sister. So we would drive to San Antonio, and we would drive up to Fort Worth. So they are phenomenal because I've had experience with them. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask a few questions, and we're going to start with Jenny. Jenny, so first of all, we're going to kind of go over what it is to start a business. This is Business 101. So there are also Business 102 and so on and so forth. But right now, there's some basics that just need to get addressed. And without you doing the basics, if you don't set the foundation properly in the beginning and your business takes off, it can get a little bit hairy. So it's really great to have this group of women to talk about what it is to set the right foundation so that you can launch and scale well and successfully. So Jenny, what are the 4 pillars of successful businesses, and why are they important?
Yep. Thank you so much. So if I could just do a little housekeeping, because it's really helpful, especially for this panel. For me, just speaking for myself. So by a show of hands, my name is Jenny Dufresne. I'm the CEO of the Dufresne Solutions Group. We're a training and leadership development company focused on developing mid-level leaders and managers to get the results that the company wants to move its profits forward. So by a show of hands, how many of you are between 0 and 2 years in business? Just throw your hand up. 0 and 2 years, nice and strong. Okay, great. So 2 to 5 years, throw your hands up if you're 2 to 5 years. Okay, and 5 years or more. Okay, great. So we have a nice mix of beginning entrepreneurs and seasoned business owners. So my next question is, how many of you have a business plan? Hand up. Okay, great. So the first thing I'm going to say before I get to the answer to your question is, if you do not have a business plan, there is a orange piece of paper on your table. It's very simple, one-page business plan. It is critical for your success to have a plan. Now, for some of us, we may have written one of those ones that's got 40 pages, and it will take you 4 ways to Sunday, and you don't know what you don't know, especially if you're starting out. Probably 0 to 5, 6 years, you may not know what you don't know. And so you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to spend all this time writing this business plan. So one of the most important things that I discovered in my process, I've had this business for 6 years. I've built a multi-million-dollar business a few years ago, had 60 staff, and that's why I don't have any hair anymore. But the most important thing is to definitely have a plan. And it can be simple, very, very, very simple. So the one-page business plan will get you there. So to answer your question, the 4 things that you need to make sure that you're thinking about as a business owner are, there's 4 areas. Sales, that gets you paid. Marketing, which gets you known. Operations, which is the processes and the things that make things work inside of your business. And then finance. If you don't manage your money well, you won't be in business.
Very, very true. Very succinct. I love that. And I have not seen the orange paper yet. I will say that if you wrote a business plan in the beginning, you'll want to redo it again and again, because you're going to get through different stages. And where you were aiming in the beginning may have led you to a different corridor, and that's going to take another set of plans to get you where you want to be. Great. Anne, would you like to talk about that as well?
Sure. Business planning is a big part of what we do at the Small Business Development Center, which is a no-cost resource for everybody in this room, everybody anywhere. We're here to support both existing businesses and people who are looking to start a business. So those of you that are 5 years in business, you're still okay to come in and seek our services. And planning is key. I think a lot of people have this vision of the 40-page business plan. We do help people put together a business plan. It's about 14 pages, and about 10 of those pages is 3 years of financial projections. So the meat of the business plan doesn't have to be, when you're telling somebody your story about how you want to start a business and how you're going to do that, you can do it very succinctly. It doesn't have to be 40 pages to be impactful. For those who you're presenting that plan to, there's a couple reasons you do a plan. One is for if you're trying to get financing for your business, but then also primarily that plan is for you to use as a roadmap to know when you've gotten where you're trying to go. Really, the business plan is all about setting those goals for you as a business owner, and then having those milestones along the way to tell when you're ahead of track. We have had people who have laid out a business plan and come back in a year later and they're like, oh my gosh, it just blew up. I'm way far ahead of where I thought I would be. And that adds additional challenges to someone who's starting a business. You always wish for, gosh, if we could just, have people beating down our door, this would be great. But it does present different challenges for you as a startup business. So just know you've got resources, and a lot of them are represented here today. And don't be afraid to ask for help, guidance, just a sympathetic ear, in the way of an advisor, because they've been in your shoes for the most part, and they can help you kind of find a path to where you're trying to go.
Thank you. Jenny, would you like to talk on this subject?
Jane? Oh. I totally agree with both of them. I myself had a one-page business model canvas, as I call it, and it was by the concept of the strategizer, with really focusing in on who my core market was, the value proposition associated with that, and then laying out those 4 pillars that Jenny had just so excellently talked about. And you're spot on. I developed my first business model canvas for my recent business. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I said I would never do it again, and here I am. And I developed it first draft a year ago, and now then I put it in an Excel workbook because I was just like, I need to be looking at this every single day. So now it's like 5 spreadsheets, in one little booklet that all tie together. But I'm constantly revisiting it, making sure that I'm, the assumptions that I'm making are still legit, or that maybe I need to be reaching out to a new subject matter expert. So I couldn't agree more. I think what these ladies have said is spot on.
Catherine?
Good morning. My name is Catherine Stone. I work at the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Our function is to help small business that want to get government contracting, whether it's local, city, county, state, or federal government. And having been a prior contract officer, when I see clients, many times they have a idea in their head, but they haven't put it down on paper. And a lot of times you need the plan so that you can see your vision on paper. A lot of times you need to know the structure, you need to know the format, you need to know many things that are done in a plan. And you can't just come in and say, I want a contract, but you have no plan, you have no structure. You don't know where you're going to get your money from, you don't know where you're going to get your labor from, you don't know what costs are going to be. So a plan is the foundation before you come see me concerning contracting. So please do a plan. The SBDC have wonderful advisors. So we always, if someone comes to my office about contracting and they have no plan, I send them next door to visit the SBDC and get a plan. And once you have one, please come back and I'll be happy to help you go towards a contract.
So I know that there's some people here, quite a bit, that already have a business and they're in different stages of their growth. For me, it's very, like kind of sitting down and calming down. Because I'm very creative and I see it all in my head and then I have to kind of calm myself down. But to write it down, to flush it out, makes a huge difference. And I actually have to do that regularly because our business, I don't want to say change. I mean, it changes, but not like it's this 180 change. There are nuances that change. And as it changes, I have to incorporate that into where we're going, what we're doing, who we're hiring, how we need to grow. And Karen and my partner and I, we sit down and go through that. And that is a tremendous exercise. And it helps also to have mentors at different stages. So just because you start, they're great resources when you start a business, but they're also great resources up here and other places around the state that when you're at a different, you've got the 101 or you've got the business plan, now you need this. Every stage requires a new, let's say roadmap. And you cannot know where you're going until you know where you are. So if you're on a map and you're like, I want to go to Amarillo. Well, you better know where you're starting from. Otherwise, there's a lot of time that gets wasted. So
I had something to add. I thought Catherine's piece was so perfect because one of the things that I was talking to the table about over here, now I've done this a few times, and one of my practices is I put my ideas down on the paper, but then I'll take a month and I will go and talk to everybody I can and try to kill the idea. And it's because for me, I want to know that my baby's ugly before somebody else tells me my baby's ugly, right? And I don't want to invest a bunch of time and money into something if, I want to disprove it as fast as I can. So I love this thought of putting it down on paper, and I would just add that taking that time to kill it yourself so that, and part of that process is about getting that passion and that purpose and that direction that you all are talking about, and that's very critical in the very beginning.
Also, it is a living document. Your plan is it's not a one-time event. So it's really, as she said, annually, you need to sit down and review it. And as you add and increase and do other things, you modify your documents, you modify your numbers, you modify your financials. The SBDC gives you 3 years of financials. Multiple things can change, and so it's a living document you need to be aware of, to constantly be looking at it, at least annually.
And what are the 3 things the business owners and entrepreneurs need to do on a daily basis?
So we've actually touched on one of the key ones, I think every single one of us has, and it goes back to the business plan or your plan, whatever your roadmap is, on a daily basis. And particularly when you're, I believe, in the first 0 to 5 years, on a daily basis, you should sit down, and I do this every morning, sit down and look at, for me, a 1 page that says, this is what I said I'm going to do, this is what I said who we're going to be serving, this is the impact we want to have, and this is the money that we need to make. So the first thing is that look at whatever your plan is, whatever your roadmap is. It's the same thing back in the good old days, for those of you who remember the good old days when we had maps, like you had to read them to get someplace. You looked at it multiple times along the path, along the journey, right? You didn't just sort of get that, driving from Austin to here. You can't just sort of put that in your head and get going. You have to actually stop and look along the way. So first thing is review, look at your business plan or your business roadmap every day. And it should be, again, this is why the 1 page becomes really helpful, or whatever the tool is that's a 1 snapshot. Look at it every day, because who's distracted right now? Like, you don't have to raise your hand, I'm sorry, but that's a terrible question. But who's thinking about something else right now? Like probably 90 things. We're women, we're thinking about 90 things, right? And so if that's the same thing that happens in business, there are all kinds of things that are coming at us, people who say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And so it's really important to balance yourself every day and ensure that you know where you're going. That's the first thing. The second is look at the amount of revenue and profit that you want to generate on a daily basis. And it depends, again, on your business. So if you have a business in construction, you probably are going to be looking every day to see what are the numbers that we need to hit, because those roll up into your weekly goal, they roll up into your monthly goal, they roll up into your quarterly, and what have you. So same thing. How much money do I say I want to make? If you're a business that relies on calling people, you have to look at that and know every single day where you're going. And then the final thing, and this is particularly relevant for the women in the room, although the gentlemen, this applied for you as well, but particularly for women, because we have not 1 job, not 2, we have like 40 jobs, right? Each of us have about 40 jobs that we're managing people and all that. So as business owners and business leaders, it is imperative that we schedule time every day to rest, to walk, to eat something nutritious, and to connect with someone that we love. That comes from lots of hard learning.
I was just going to add, the speech I give everybody, I do a lot of volunteer work launching new companies, and Jenny's spot on. I tell everybody in the beginning, the business plan's the given, right? So it's kind of like safety when you're it's a given, but then it's all about sales and self-care. Those are the 2 priorities and it's hustling, and I love Catherine's word earlier, being aggressive and in a way that you're going to make your vision come to reality. So I think Jenny's spot on.
But your plan is putting your dream on paper, okay? But that dream is up to you whether it succeeds or not, and how much aggressive effort you put into that. But you also set some time for you as well. It's not just all the business. You have a balance, but it has to be your dream, and you have to fulfill it yourself. Others can educate you, instruct you, and give you data, but what you do with that is up to you. So your success of your dream is your choice.
Yeah, I was going to say, we didn't really touch on yet, we always counsel people to start with the end in mind. A lot of people think, I want to start a business, but they don't really know, like, what happens on the other end. How do I get out of this business eventually? And how you see that vision of where this business is going to go ultimately determines a lot of factors on the front end for you. Your business structure, what kind of structure you choose, how you do your record keeping for most people do their record keeping to minimize their tax liability. Well, that's not a great idea if you think you're going to sell that business in 5 years, because you need to show you made a profit, and the bigger the better. So there's a lot of things to consider as you're starting your business. You definitely want to have that end in mind. If you're just wanting to make a living and then you're going to close the business down when you retire, that's fine. If you want to pass it on to some of your kids, I would recommend that you ask them if they want it, because we see a lot of people that literally have to shut down their businesses because they have nobody to hand it to. And it's a sad thing. They've got this lifelong dream that now is going nowhere, as they envisioned, originally. So I would encourage you to picture the end in mind as you're starting your business.
What are the 3 myths that cost business owners lots of time and money? Which, by the way, is the most precious thing you have, is time. And you can be on a hamster wheel and not get anywhere and spend a lot of time, and it will cost you a lot of money in the end.
Yep. So the first myth is that everyone is your client or everyone is your customer. Again, depending on your business, if you're selling sweaters, everyone in the Bahamas is probably not going to be relevant to you. So if you're spending a lot of time marketing to people in the Bahamas, you're not going to make any money. So the first thing is really getting sharply crystal clear, and this is the power of the business plan again, is getting really super crystal clear on who your client is. Everyone is not. Again, we often are like, oh, I want to start a business, and well, who do you want to serve? I want to serve everybody. No, everyone is not your client. The sharper you know who your client is, the more money you will make. Full stop. The second is this idea that, I had this conversation with someone, and so I'll be curious to hear how folks see this, is that the other myth is that marketing gets you paid. Marketing does not get you paid. Sales gets you paid. Marketing gets you known. So you're known to people, but you still have to close the sale. You still have to do that extra work to get the sale, whatever you're selling. And then the last, and again, there's experience in all of this. The last is that we for whatever reason, we got in, and this was probably 10 years or maybe even further, like focusing on getting our website up. I'm going to be a new business owner. I got to get my website. I got to get my business cards. I got to get my flyers. I got to get my brochures. I got to do all of that stuff, right? If you've ever done that, and then you're sitting there with all of that money that you spent. Okay, chuckle, but that means that there's some experience in the room with this. Yes. As you're then sitting there, it's like, I have this beautiful $8,000 website, and look at my business cards, they're platinum, and they walk on their own, and I don't understand why I've just burned through my entire savings. So, the big myth is websites don't get you paid either. Business cards actually don't get you paid. I went through last night, I spent 2 hours going through all the business cards that I've accumulated over the last few weeks and trying to remember where I met people, and literally I have a stack this big, and that's just from 2 weeks. So they don't get me paid either. It's the follow-up and the sales that get me paid.
Oh, I would completely agree. I was just going to, you're asking, I think it's all about the sales. In fact, now having done this a few times, I don't spend a penny on marketing. I've got a great website, and it was cheap. A lot of free stuff that's out there already. And couldn't agree more. I do think depending on what you're trying to achieve, something to consider is PR. And how you show up in those different environments. But other than that, I think you're spot on.
The marketing process is important, but it's more of going after your specific market. Mm-hmm. Do you have a niche? Do you know that you've got something nobody else has? So in the sense of marketing, you need to find out what's out there. Mm-hmm. And then do you have something that no one else has? And in that capacity, your marketing helps for that. But it is not your prime amount of time should not go after doing marketing. It should be going after sales.
Okay, and the sales only count if you collect the cash.
Well done. Amen.
That's correct.
You
Cash is
haven't
king.
actually closed the sale until it's in your bank account, everybody. Just don't spend it before it's there. And that check gets cashed, because you might have to go get another one.
Yeah, and I would say, to add to that, you don't know if you have cash or where it's going unless you understand your financial statements. So if you're not a financial expert, which a lot of business owners are not, that's usually the weakest area for someone who is an expert at something, but their own finances is not typically that thing. We do have a lot of resources to help people at least have a rudimentary understanding of what those financial statements are telling them. And if you're not an expert, don't keep your own books. Hire a bookkeeper, invest that money, because your time is probably better spent elsewhere in your business.
A great CPA will help you tremendously. So, does everybody who has a business have a CPA? Who doesn't have a CPA? Very good. If you don't, get one. Get a good one that knows your industry. They need to know your industry. There are nuances that every single industry, they need to know it very well. Sales is everything. I mean, it's so important. A very wise mentor told me, it's not what you sell it for, it's what you buy it for. So we have to buy at the right price. Mm-hmm. So raw materials, whatever. Mm-hmm. It also is overhead. So you touched on overhead. You could get eaten up alive in overhead and costs and have amazing sales, but your overhead, you can't, it's costing you more to just operate. To your point about the marketing and, I'm a girl. I like things pretty. I want to make sure I show up just right. That's most of the time that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, but in the sense of we needed a business card. I just needed to get it printed. It was very basic. We didn't even have a website because it cost too much for what we needed to do. And we realized in our business it was relationships. So we focused all of our time and all of our money showing up to industry events. So that $8,000, and they're so expensive, if you think, you can do a splash page very quickly, you can get something free. Just put something up for contact info. Put your picture, it's kind of part of the business plan. Get something up there because they want to know you have a web presence, but don't spend a lot of money on until you know that that's something really, really important. But overhead and then sales. Very good. What are the stumbling blocks that you find that entrepreneurs are constantly coming up against?
I just talked on this not too long ago. Fear. Just straight up fear. And we talk a lot about being fearless, and there's still things that'll come up. And so I've been at this latest company. By the way, I should have done what you guys all did earlier. My name is Jane Henry. I own a company called See Her Work. We provide personal protective clothing and equipment for women. It's a brand new company, started this year. I'm very excited about it. Anyway, a lot of fear in that. In fact, it started with me taking that business plan and walking it around and telling everybody, this couldn't be real. This isn't a real business. And I can't tell you how many. Look, I can Google women's PPE, and that means it's fine. I'm like, have you talked to the women? Do you know what's going on? Do you know that 150 women die every single year because of it? Do you know that I have 20 years of data that proves conscious inaction? And so but you still hear it. You still hear it. You still doubt yourself. And, even today, it's unreal the amount of support that I've gotten, but I'm still in that awkward zone of I need to make it past the first year, and I still doubt myself. And there's just a real opportunity to not let that fear become you and switch it into being fearless.
I think I absolutely echo what Jane said. if you're not afraid, like you're not awake and you're not pushing the edge of your capacity far enough. I think the other stumbling block, honestly, is not knowing your numbers. I think we unfortunately as women have sometimes bought into this idea that we don't understand money, but we all shop. We command the most amount. We command something like 3/4 of the spending power in the world. But we then say, well, I don't know numbers. I can't keep a spreadsheet. I can't keep a budget. I don't really buy into that. But I know in the business world, you're talking about the overhead, like understanding what some of those things are. There is so much help, ladies, that we need to actually access, whether it's the sister to your left or to your right, or it's the brother to your left or to your right. It is important to get that information, because at the end of the day, you can make a lot of sales, but if you're upside down all the time, you're working like crazy, and you're trying to figure out why are you not successful, whatever your idea of success is. So I think one of our greatest stumbling blocks is not understanding our numbers, and not understanding profit. Profit more important. There's a book called Profit. Is it called Profit First? Profit First. There's a book called Profit First, and so you read it and you're like, duh. Like, we take leftovers as the profit, right? And the book Profit First flips it. You put profit first, and then you do everything else from there. So it actually tightens up your overhead. It tightens up what you're doing, because you're actually putting your profit at the top line rather than way at the bottom line and sort of underneath. So I would say knowing our numbers is huge.
I would say one thing as far as the stumbling block is not admitting to yourself that you need help. You don't know it all. You don't need to know it all. You just need to know the person that has the resource you don't have. So it's okay to admit, I don't know this. I want to go this direction, and I have an idea, and I have a plan, but I don't have all the resources. But there are multiple resources. You just need to know where to find them. So don't be afraid to admit, I don't know everything I need to start this business, but go find the person that will help you get that skill.
I'd say be very careful who you bring into your business. Who you surround yourself is going to be super key to your business success. It's really hard if you haven't taken the time to really vet the people that you're bringing onto your business. You're going to pay a price later on. We see a lot of people come in, and this is the extreme end of things, but internal theft from businesses is just really, really a lot more prevalent than what people think. And you think you can trust these people that are doing your books, or it's worth the time and any expense of time, because time is money for startup small businesses. That's typically why people don't take the time they should to vet people before bringing them on board. And it's hard to find good people. That's still true. So it does take a lot of time, but it's time well spent for you to really analyze and vet the folks before bringing them on board.
We're kind of coming to the end of the session, and I wanted to open it up for questions in the room. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists?
I was going to ask, going back to knowing your financial data, and you said that everybody should have a CPA for taxes and stuff. What is your input on outsourcing bookkeeping rather than hiring a bookkeeper and you let the CPA do any of your tax stuff? Would that save a lot of money?
Have an employee.
Yeah, you don't have to have someone on your staff. You can outsource that.
I just wanted to know your input on it, the pros and cons, or what you thought about that, especially for small businesses.
Well, it depends on where you're starting, and I'll let her expand on that. But, for a really super small startup business, maybe it's just you're a sole prop and you're just getting going, outsourcing that bookkeeping piece, especially if that's not a skill set you have, is pretty minimally expensive. Let's just put it this way, we talk about it all the time. If you can't afford to hire a bookkeeper and you're a super small business like that, you probably don't need to be in business. Because really bookkeeping is pretty inexpensive. CPAs cost money, but bookkeeping is pretty inexpensive.
So I have a bookkeeper that's in Virginia. So is anyone here a virtual assistant, or you provide services, sort of back office services, but you're never inside a building? Does anyone here have that business?
There you go.
So, great. So, so that in our digital world, virtual assistants and virtual people is actually more and more prevalent, and particularly for small business owners. So my bookkeeper is in Virginia. Here are the things that I think are really important. If you hire anyone external to you, it's helpful to know a little bit about what they do. It's helpful to ask, interview 3 people. And, if you start hearing common themes, that's great. If you're hearing real inconsistencies between them, ask 3 more, or ask other business owners, because that's really important. The other is have accountability mechanisms. I think one of the reasons why it's so hard for us to find good people is that we interview whoever it is, whether it's a virtual person or a live person is going to be in our building, and then we sort of let them go. And so with anything that you have, and your money for me is one of the more important places, make sure that you have some accountability. If they're supposed to provide you your financials on the 30th of every month, if they miss that deadline, that's a quick tightening up, because then the next time it doesn't get there till the 5th, and then after that's the 10th, and then what have you. So accountability is important in that process, but absolutely, I think I've had a bookkeeper for years, because I don't want to do it. It's not what I want to be the very best in the world at.
What I'll say to that, we did not hire a bookkeeper in the beginning because we were told, and it's very good advice, you need to set up your own QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. You need to have an idea of what it is, because then you know where people might be stealing from you. So you have to have some sort of skin in it. You need to know how to do it a lot. Get it going. You put the foundation in, and then hire a professional, and then then learn from them. Have them walk you through it a few times, once a month. What did you do? How do you input this? So that you can, God forbid, they get sick or something happens, and now it's on you, and now you can't even begin, right? You can't even pick up the pieces. So I would say, get it going for yourself, learn it a little bit, ask for help for them to help you set it up, and then, you can outsource at a certain point. Yes. Did everybody hear the question? Talk about budgeting, and how to set up budgets and stick to the budgets. That's the hardest part right there. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I'll do it. So I've had a previous service company, and now I have a product-based business. So for me, the capital requirements up front are quite large, so the budget became even more important. So for me, as I was talking, and I was proud of myself with this business, because I decided I didn't know anything, and that I was going to find the people that did and talk to them about what they needed to be paid in order to help me do this. And so that went into my budget. But so we built the plan together, and I'm kind of nerdy. I actually did it in Microsoft Project, and then put down the amount of money that we expected to pay for that particular activity. And then that drove my rolling forecast that I constantly look at and see how my financials look compared to that budget. Now, I couldn't agree with you more in this business. Before, I was so afraid of my books. I'm just like, listen, I could just make money. It's good. I'm just going to keep making money. And that was a mistake I made by not setting up my own QuickBooks and really understanding the reporting that I needed to come out of it to make informed decisions. In this business, I set up my own QuickBooks, and that was very helpful. And I also took a finance class. I didn't even take one, I took 3. It took me that, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn this. And I think that, that financing and that budgeting and understanding your QuickBooks are pretty crucial in being successful.
There's always a balance of, okay, here's the budget, we need to stick to the budget, and then what is actually available cash-wise, and then what is available in your backlog. So you're always balancing these aspects, because if you're a new business in a up to 5 years and more, actually, this goes for multi-billion-dollar companies. They're going to double down on their money. They're going to reinvest their money. So how much can you reinvest? Where are you getting the money from? So for us, it's our own money. So we have to stick to the budget. But at the same time, we're like, you have to kind of see where, and then there are actual costs. So you can go and see what the budgets are, and then there's actual cost. What it actually costs you. And that's something very, very important to see. Do you have a team of people? Do you have a lot of people with you in your business? Okay. So we have employees, and we give out budgets, and we kind of, they're going to go over them. They typically don't go under them, but they do go over them. So we have to look at real cost. So this is marketing, or this is business trips. Well, what is the real cost in that? So that goes back to your roadmap and all of that stuff. So,
Can I add one
sure.
Sorry. The other thing that's really important on this, when we're talking about finances and budgets, how many of you pay yourselves? So the reason I ask the question is that as business owners, if we've left being employed, having a traditional 9-to-5 job, and we come into this world, and then we're like, I'm going to just do everything. I'm going to pour. And there's this sort of ethos, this myth around, like, you just sacrifice yourself to your business, and it's going to be 5 years, and you're just going to keep giving to the business. From jump, pay yourself. It's a mistake that I've made, and then you get into this thing where you're like, well, I can't. Well, I can't yet. And so even if it's $100 a month, $100 a week, it doesn't matter. You're beginning to get into the process where you pay yourself, and then as you continue going forward, you're like, oh, I can give myself a raise. I've done a great job, right? So, but really it's important because otherwise you end up, if you want to sell your business, you have to show that it can support people besides employees. It has to be able to support the leadership structure, the owner structure. And so pay yourself. It could be $10, it doesn't matter, but get into the habit of including that in your budget and your financials and in your process. And that's why you need a bookkeeper, because they would set your stuff up so you get a little check.
Also, the college, Del Mar, does offer courses, and SBDC offers several different kinds of financial courses, QuickBook, certain kinds of things, structural processes that you need, and the majority of them are minimal. They're less than $50, maybe $100 at the most. And so those are, there are resources in the community if you're not knowledgeable about that. As she said, she took 3 financial courses. It doesn't cost a lot to go to the school. So there are other opportunities for you. Mentor with a business that's already in place that would take you under their wing and share with you how to put a budget together. Are you good at budget at home? Or are you a person at home that budgets? That matters. If you're not good at your own personal finances, how would you going to do with your business finances? So it's kind of a look in the mirror and see how you do your personal finances also affect how your business finances are going to be done.
Well, I hope everybody's gotten something I have, and we've got some really good expertise and experience and wisdom here.